It is 7:01 on April 15th. This is our April board meeting. We only have one board meeting this month due to spring break. So nice to see everybody back. So welcome everybody. Nice to see you. And for those we can't see, welcome to our community, our educators here, our cabinet, and of course our volunteer board again. Hope you all had a great holiday, that you were safe and remain COVID aware and thoughtful, as of course we're not yet done. And welcome Dr. Harbeck. In our agenda tonight, we will have two special presentations, one on our summer learning program concept and one on recommended year-end assessments. So we look forward to that. We also hear you relative to matters regarding the DV high schools, and my cohorts on the board, no likely as myself, will have some few comments here in board comments. So let us start with a motion to adopt the agenda. A motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you, Joanne. Ms. Subaki?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Dr. Dougal, would you be so kind to lead us in the flag salute?
Sure. Go ahead and stand. Ready? Begin. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we move to From the Public, but as always, we start with the Share Your Thoughts comments. We actually only had one comment in this period regarding preschool updates, and I believe Dr. Silvers will be updating us as just where we are relative to preschool in his comments. So thank you for those comments. We encourage them. We do wish you to share, and we of course welcome all public comments. So Ms. Subaki, let us turn to you for them now.
Thank you. I have a few public comments this evening. The first is Miss Harley Hoff, who would like to read her comment herself. If we could please move her over. Hi, Harley.
You know, I have to tell you, I'm surprised. I was coming on to watch. I don't remember submitting any statement. You mean for the last meeting?
Okay, it was on March 31st.
It was from the last meeting.
Yes, okay.
And you read it for me, remember?
Yes, this came in on the 31st, the day after that meeting. But if you don't have anything, that's okay. We're happy to see you.
Oh, you want to read it?
No, I don't have anything you said. You read it.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Nice to see you all.
Okay. So we can slide Harley back over, and I believe I have a comment from Gloria Gutierrez. It was also on March 31st, so we can see if she'd like to make a comment. Hi, Ms. Gutierrez. You're muted.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. I would be remiss if I didn't actually tell you that you may be looking at something different, because I definitely did not submit comments requests for this one either. Or maybe you're just used to seeing us and you thought usual suspects. You all got an email from me today that was sent while I was in tears. And so I'll just reiterate it, help us out, It doesn't feel good to be a Wiseburn resident right now. I like to believe that you all really care. I know a lot of you very, very well. And personally, Roger, you're big on my screen right now.
Great.
So you have center stage. And I know that we're going to have to all see each other again in person, and this is very, very challenging. I appreciate that. I know you guys have a difficult task to deal with, and you have difficult people, as myself at times, to deal with, but it definitely comes very charged with emotion, but you know that. So I will give you back the time since I didn't even ask for it, but thank you.
Thanks, Gloria. Okay, I have 3 more comments, and these are to be read for them. The first one is from Julie Matos. She says, can you please provide clarity on when the early entrance preschool program will resume? The next comment I have is from Kelly Schumacher. Thank you, Dr. Goldman, for your comment at the end of the last board meeting. which highlighted all the ways Da Vinci High Schools benefit our students. It is clear that a dialogue between Wiseburn residents and Da Vinci High School administrators needs to be facilitated. At the same time, it is important to remember the forward-thinking, exciting educational opportunities that Da Vinci provides for our children, all of which prepare them for success in college and future careers. Thank you for this important reminder. And I have one more comment from Debbie Felt. Hi, I want to thank all of the Wiseburn School Board members, staff, and teachers for the hard work you have done to bring students back on campus. Although the time is limited, I am thankful my child is able to step back on the Dana campus. In-person learning is by far a much better choice for all of my children. My question to the board is, will we see additional on-campus access offered to our students this school year? Many of the neighboring districts are increasing the days on campus for the remainder of the school year. Is that something you are looking to do as well? The positive impact I have seen from my nieces, nephews, and family friends' children who have been able to get back on campus is overwhelming. I understand it is an extremely hard task to stay equitable for both virtual and in-person learning. However, I do ask that the district look to see if any additions can be made. Thank you for your time and for all that you do. And that is it for public comments, please.
Thank you to our unexpected and expected contributor. And Wendy, thank you for reading. Next on our agenda is special presentations. And our first presentation is on the Summer Extended Learning Program. I believe Dr. Harbeck, Dr. Dougal, and Mrs. Mazzarella will be sharing the views.
Still not used to that mute. There we go. Thank you. All right, we're ready to begin. Thank you so much. Looking forward to presenting to you on our planning. I just want to begin by stating that we are still in the planning stages for our summer programs. So tonight's presentation will give you an overview of where we stand as of today. It's not a full picture yet, but we're hoping to have that for you soon. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just a second here. I'm sorry, I just have to, here we go. There we go. All right. So we're calling this year's program the Summer Extended Learning Planning Program, or program for 2021. It's a little different than what we've done in the past where we've had something called summer school. So we're looking at more extended learning. We've established a framework for this. We are looking at, our focus is on student learning loss and also on grade level transition. So we want to make sure that we're addressing both needs for our students. And this is supported by how we look at pupil achievement. We want to mitigate that learning loss after our year of closure. We also want to provide intensive instruction as needed for gaps in core academic skills. And we want to support our students as they progress to the next grade level as needed. We base everything we do in summer school and in our regular programs on what's called the multi-tiered systems of support. You're going to see this over and over again as a basis for our decision making. MTSS is a larger program. It involves academic, behavior, and social emotional learning for the child, the whole child. So it's based on 4 key ideas: providing targeted support to struggling students, using data to screen our students, looking at the whole child, and using all our data to intervene early. So this is the basis for MTSS, and it's built on 3 tiers. Tier 1 is generally in the classroom. It's universal. All students are supported with our great teaching methods and our resources and everything that we can offer based on their needs. Tier 2 is when we go to small groups. We start looking more at intervention and what we can do to address those needs early so students don't need Tier 2. And then, of course, if that we still have needs, we go on to Tier 3, which more intensive help with individualized support. And this is for students who are identified and outside the classroom. Keeping that in mind, this year we're going to go ahead and look at 3 different programs in our district. And I'm going to give you just a little comparison on what we've done before. We've always held extended school year, and this is a program for students who are receiving support through their individualized educational plans, or IEPs. And Ms. Mazzarella is going to talk about that in just a moment. We're also going to offer a targeted support group. for summer school. This was our what we used to call summer school, but now we're looking more at targeted support. This would be open to our Wiseburn identified students with incoming grades 1 through 8. In the past, we had about 137 kids in this program combined with ESY. So far we've identified, if we're basing it on where we are today, just over 100 kids, about 110 kids. It's a little low. We'll see where we are closer to the end of the year. And then we have our Summer Bridge program. This is new. The Summer Bridge program is open to all of our students, incoming grades 1 through 8. We'll give you more on that in a moment. Summer Enrichment, I'm not going to address tonight. These are just 2 programs that are in progress, or in development rather, our Right at School childcare program, which also is an enrichment program. And then the Wiseburn Education Foundation, I know is in the planning stages of putting something together for enrichment as well. So I'm going to pass this to Ms. Mazzarello to talk about our extended school year program.
Good evening, everyone. So extended school year, as you all know, is a unique term for through IDEA, the federal law for special education, and it is exactly that. It's the purpose is to extend the school year for those students who may would encounter some regression and recoupment issues should they have that long school break. And this goes beyond what a typical student would have. Everybody has some learning loss, or, there's some science about that. And we have to make up some kind of refresh them in the fall. But these are students who have are at risk of more significant learning loss. And so the extended school year program addresses those things. IEP teams make the decision for whether or not they recommend children with IEPs to participate in this program. It's optional for families. They don't have to go to extended school year. We will be running it during the dates of June 28th through July 23rd. And of course, July 5th is a holiday. It will run concurrently with the summer school program for the general education students. So it will be for all preschoolers up to the adult transition students at the Success Learning Center.
Right.
And we will offer it as either an on-campus option or distance, depending on the student needs. The hope is that everyone will come and be in person, but we know that there are still some extenuating circumstances where some of our families may not be able to send their children to school in person, and we will maybe have to do some concurrent instruction.
Right. Thank you. Our second program is the Targeted Support Summer Program. This program is focused on learning recovery for our general education students. It's offered for just identified students. Ms. Nitsos is our data and assessment coordinator, and she is continually looking at data using that early warning system to determine who might best fit in this program, and I'll show you that in just a minute. The model is really for foundational skills with mathematics and reading, trying to fill those gaps. This again will be offered on campus or distance, and as needed, we may need to offer that concurrent or simultaneous instruction. It's a little different than last year. Typically, we match our time with the ESY program, a 4-week program. We've decided this year to extend it a little and to break it into 2 parts. So we're going to offer 2 3-week programs. And the thinking behind this is that both our staff and our students would have the opportunity then to either participate in both or one session, depending on their own summer schedules or needs. I will say that this is an invitation-only program, so there is an option for students to be enrolled in either one session or both sessions, depending on the summer school principal and where the student is at. We're going to review that individually with each student. So we begin in June, at the end of June, June 28th, for the first session, and then we begin the second session in July through August. Just to speak about how students are identified for that, we are going to go ahead and use our early warning system. We used this last year. It's very successful in how we identified. We were able to provide all the teachers who taught in that summer program with data on their children. So they knew who they were working with. They could plan instruction around that. We use the data that we have from our local assessments and of course grades and recommendations. So we use attendance, our grades for English and math. Behavior's a little different, this year. We don't have our typical data on that. We are looking at how students show up for class. Are they on screen? Are their cameras on? Are they attending their Zoom classes? And now, of course, we have hybrid, so we're balancing with both. We're looking at attendance for both. Secondary identifiers have to do with our counseling referrals, our site, that's our teacher and principal referrals, our STAR reading and STAR math assessments that we have ongoing throughout the year, And then we're going to give a priority, of course, to our unduplicated population. That would be our students who are identified as low income, our English learners, and our foster youth. As it stands, I think I shared with you already, we just have just about 13 children for targeted support identified, and maybe another 97 that are in the next tier. So for the Summer Bridge program, this is our newer program. We have a goal here for students to address the essential learnings for the very next grade level. So this enrollment will be open to students for incoming grades 1 through 8 and offered on campus or distance. Again, if we have to do concurrent for those students, we don't want to exclude students who are unable to make it on campus. This will be based on our teachers creating their own course proposals for this bridge program. And the focus is on priming students for the next grade level in the areas of math, English, language arts, which could be a humanities mix, and science. Any proposal turned in would need to identify a minimum of 2 essential standards that they're going to address in that instruction. So we'll be looking again to our teachers who know more about what students need to bridge into the next grade level for their subject matter. And this is open to all of our teachers who are interested in applying for it. Again, we're doing those 2 3-week programs, so 2 3-week sessions, same dates as the other program for teachers if they'd like to teach one or both, and students as well.
Dr. Harbeck, question. Can you go back to that? Thank you. So is this program intended for students that are maybe a little bit behind to get them ready for the next grade level, or is this looking ahead so to get a jump on the next grade? And is there a cost to parents for this program?
Thank you for asking. This is I'm sorry, it wasn't clear on that. This is a free program. We are looking at funding this for our families, and it is a soft onboarding to the next grade level. It really is a readiness program. So okay. It's really, it's not a learning regression or a learning mitigation program at all. That would be our targeted support program. This is for students who, a readiness program, a priming for the next grade level.
Great, thank you.
And I'm going to throw it to Dr. Dougal.
Hello, everyone. So you've gotten a primer on the different courses or the different options we're going to have available for students. Next steps on our end is before we have students invited, as well as having students apply for the Summer Bridge program, we are looking at the staffing. And so certificated teaching positions, those opened up yesterday, and the application window will be open till April 30th. And so we're hoping to get our teachers from Weisburn to be able to teach our students. We will also be looking at hiring classified staff once we have a better understanding or an idea of the numbers of students. So instructional aides, clerical support, playground support as well. And so we will get all of those positions filled as well. And finally, on today's agenda, we do have our summer school administrator identified, Ms. Katie Masterson. And so there is a board recommendation to approve her as the administrator for our summer program. So that is the staffing kind of timeline for the next few weeks, is we are looking to ensure that our program is fully staffed based on the needs of our students.
Dr. Dougal, which campus is going to host these students?
I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Harbeck. I'm not exactly sure based on the numbers.
So okay. we are in the planning stages, and so we haven't firmed that up. In the past, we've used ANZA very successfully for a full summer program because of the grade levels and the accessibility of classrooms and different sizes of desks. We are including middle school this year, so we are looking to expand possibly to day and middle school for that. It's really as per need. I'm hoping to see, we're hoping to see how our teachers' interest level is for hiring on this to determine our next steps, but those would be our 2 campuses.
Dr. Harbeck, this may be an unfair question, so I'll preface it with that, because I realize you're in the planning stages, so I give you an out. And in the best case scenario, as you envision this, what percentage of our students would be able to take advantage of this?
Gosh, with our, that is a hard question, Dr. Goldman. It really depends on staff interest and our ability to staff. If we have staff, the more we can offer, the better.
Obviously, I encourage us to look outside. I want to have our teachers first, of course, give them the first opportunity, but if there's demand and an opportunity to reach outside.
Yeah,
And Dr. Goldman, I would add, I agree. I agree with that. And I think we've talked about that as a team. I know Dr. Dougal is, we've talked about if we don't have enough of our current staff, that we would go outside. It's pretty common in other districts to do that, to look outside for summer, for teachers that may be looking for summer work. I also do want to share that we are still following COVID rules to the best of our ability and wanting to limit the number of students. So there could be some issues as it relates to the number of students in classrooms and just facility space as well.
Well, thank you. And that's our planning. We hope to come back to you with more numbers. We'll of course have some data for you on that. All right.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, Dr. Harbeck, don't run away too fast, because evidently you are going to join Mrs. Nitsos in the state accountability and assessments updates and recommendations. Basically, we're talking year-end testing. So take it away, guys.
Right. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up my screen again. Give me a minute. Sorry, there we are. Yep, tonight we're going to be talking to you about some new, some updates that have to do with accountability and assessment. You might have been hearing a little bit about this on the news. So we wanted to make sure we spent time tonight with the school board, giving you where Weisburn stands on that. Our focus tonight then on this presentation is to look at the changes that have been made, that have been given to us on the 2021 state assessments and the requirements for grades 3 through 8. Now, if you remember, those are the grades that we have mandated state testing traditionally for, so we're going to remain with that. We're also going to make a proposal as our response to these changes have come out. So some things that we're going to look at tonight are current assessment and reporting requirements, considerations and options for student assessment and reporting in Weisburn, and then our planning for the end of year assessment. At the bottom, I just want to make sure that we all understand that state assessment, we're going to refer to CASP, which is your California assessment. And that's an acronym that's thrown around a lot. You might hear SBAC. It's all part of the same family of tests, okay, for English and mathematics. I'm going to go back to my MTSS. This is where we frame it. You know, we always look at our how we go about our instruction, also our assessing based on those 4 important key goals. And most importantly, the third one, of course, how we address the whole child. So we want our data to be impactful. We want to use it appropriately, but we want to also have it. With testing, I just want to put in context, you know, testing doesn't teach. It's not a teaching tool. Testing is important because it gives us data. It allows us to do a better job with our students. It allows us to be informed about our instruction, how to tailor it. But as a tool, it is not a teaching tool. So I always like to frame it that way, that we put in perspective the importance of testing for what it is, which is a key to data for us to understand where our students are learning and where they need to be stretched. Okay. So in March, CASP testing last year in 2020, if you remember, was suspended. At the same time, the California dashboard, which is where accountability lives, was also suspended. So if you remember, the dashboard reports on English and math. It gives our attendance, it breaks it down by ethnicity, and it calls out different, our UPPs, all of our students are broken, it's disaggregated. Really important, the dashboard also provided us with a basis, and this is a new dashboard, it's about 3 years old, 4 years old. It gave us a baseline, and it's called a status, and every year it showed you the growth, right? Did you go further, did you go up, or did you not? So that was suspended last year. Since January, maybe a little before, through just really this week, and I'm telling you, we're getting emails daily on this. You know, you can imagine how important this is to school districts. We've received dozens of communications between the CDE and the U.S. Department of Education. So at this point in the game, we have the assessment participation rate has been waived. It was we were required to have a 95% threshold on participation. If you went below that, there were some penalties for your district. So you wanted to make sure you made sure every child was tested in your district to the best of our ability. So that's been waived. In 2021, the California dashboard has again been suspended. So there will not be any reporting again this year. In fact, in 2022, they're going to basically restart the dashboard with a new status rather than using the old data 2 years ago to reflect change. Okay, so suspended again. We will be reporting, though. You will see our chronic absenteeism, our enrollment, and suspension data. And then local assessments have been offered as an option if CASP or Smarter Balance testing is not viable in the context of the pandemic for your district. So that's an option for all districts. To make this decision about what to do with our testing, they have provided the State Board of Education has provided determining what we call determining factors. And this is how we determine the most viable option for our district in terms of local assessments, or if we should go with CASP. So we have to look at 5 things. Our current mode of instruction, which for Weisburn is both hybrid and distance. We have just about 40% of our students still learning from home. We call them Zoomers. And then our hybrid students are roomers. So who are on campus for, of course, a shorter amount of time than would be a typical school year. The availability of technology. Do all of our teachers, do all of our students have access to technology? And we feel they do. Broadband access, that's internet access. Again, I think Weisburn's done a terrific job with that, making sure our students can get online, our teachers can get online, and we have hotspots. Familiarity with the CAS platform. This has to do with, and Sarah's going to spend, Ms. Nitsos is going to spend more time on this, but this has to do with both teachers and students, familiarity with this platform. And then the benefits, and this is key, the benefits for our students in participating in one assessment versus the others, because we always want to put our students first in every decision. And then the parameters that we've been given, if we do choose to go with local assessments for language arts or math, the requirements are that these assessments have to be aligned to English language arts and math. They have to be uniformly administered. So you can't give one test to one child and a different test to another child at a grade level. It has to be uniform. And that we can disaggregate the data. Are the reports coming out that we can look at and use to make some decisions and look at our students in different groupings? We also have to be able to report, have accountability with our reports for our parents and caregivers. We have to make sure they can understand and have the right data, that our educators have the data they need, and that reporting is able to go public, that we can put it in our school accountability report cards. Now, I want to mention here that there's no, on the viability, there's no oversight on this. We were surveyed back in January, asked what kind of local assessments we have. All districts were. And at one point, the CDE tried to put together a list that maybe we could go to look at local assessments, but that was disbanded. And we are given the flexibility now to look at our own assessments. I want you to know that, by the way, Weisburn's assessments are always on the list because we follow and we have great assessments. So we're doing a great job there. But they will not seek to justify our choice. It is truly in our hands. Okay, so I just want you to know that. So I'm going to toss it over to Mrs. Nitsos. Sarah Nitsos is our assessment and data coordinator who's worked very hard on this.
Thank you, Dr. Harbeck. Good evening. So I'm going to start with the determining factors. Like Dr. Harbeck had just said, the availability of technology. It goes a little bit beyond whether or not it's available to us. All of our teachers have the technology they would need. But when it comes to looking at whether or not they have the technology to access the CASP, we have a little bit of an issue. In order to complete the CASP, our students need to have a district-issued Chromebook because there's a secure browser portion that's required to be downloaded and installed and managed. In order to complete the CASP, we would need to deliver an additional 231 district-managed Chromebooks. Because of our 40% students who are learning from home, that number still are using their own personal devices, and we're not able to download that software onto non-district managed devices. For a STAR assessment, which is run by the Renaissance Company in ELA and math, there would be no such requirement. Broadband access. Would our current broadband access suffice? For CASP, in terms of in-person assessment, the answer is yes. However, with distance learning, it's a bit more variable. In today's meeting at the State Board of Education, Burbank district shared that a lot of their distance learning students would drop off of the assessment, and they were not able to get back in while the teacher was continuing to run. The teacher then closed the session. If the student is not able to rejoin during the testing session, an email needs to be sent to the testing coordinator, and the testing coordinator needs to file an appeal with the state in order to have the test reopened for that child. So broadband access for our distance students is variable. For the STAR in English language arts and math, no such problems occur. Next slide.
And Sarah,
Yes.
I'm sorry that I didn't mention this, but for the school board and for those that are watching, you know, CASP is the state mandated set of tests that I explained that are provided to us. STAR is part of the Renaissance family of assessments, Sarah, right? And if you, we've been using these in Weisburn for quite a while for both ELA and for math. Well, math actually we just brought in this year because we knew that we needed data. So we have been using it since September. And this is an assessment that students are familiar with and have used repeatedly in our district as well as our staff. So we did hone in on the STAR. I just want to mention that. I'm sorry I didn't introduce that test to just let you know that that's the assessment that we are looking at in comparison to CASP.
Thank you, Dr. Herbeck. STAR has actually been an assessment we've used kinder through 8th grade for over a decade for ELA, and we recently kicked it off with a pilot in 2nd grade for math, and then this past year brought it on for our 3rd through 5th grade, and are looking to expand that for 6th through 8. Continuing with our determining factors, familiarity with the platform, both for the teachers and the students. CASP. We have not used this platform since 2018-19. There's a state secure browser necessitating the use of district Chromebooks. For the distance learners, they need to log off and log back in through the secure browser, which need to complete 12 unsupported steps in order to regain access with their teacher. Burbank Unified, again, today reported that this was a tremendous IT undertaking and required lots of support from that department. Between 60 to 180 minutes of staff training will be needed prior to beginning the assessment. For STAR, it's presently administered 4 to 5 times a year. And as I said, in ELA, our students have been taking it since kindergarten. It's accessible on any device. It just uses a web browser. Any web browser is fine. They can use Firefox, Chrome's, whatever makes them happy. Distance learners, we can have teachers proctoring over Zoom without adding those additional steps. No additional IT support is needed. I can hear our IT department now sighing. 10 to 20 minutes of staff refreshing is recommended prior to beginning assessment. Next slide. Determining factor of benefits for students. How would these different assessments benefit our students? In CASP, you can see that the grade periods required by grade level. So for example, in 3rd grade, the average testing time for both ELA and math is approximately 270 minutes. However, there is no time limit, so a student can take longer if needed. So about 6 class sessions are recommended, but that can go all the way up to 8 class sessions when you look at 5th grade and 8th grade. The state is recommending between 2 to 3 training sessions with students to get them familiar with the platform. Where over in STAR, it would only require 2 class sessions, one for ELA and one for math, with no training sessions needed. The test is adaptive for both CASP and STAR. Adaptive means if I'm a 3rd grader and I take a test and within CASP, I take the test. And maybe I do really well on that first question. I get a harder 3rd grade question. If I do really well on that question, I get another hard 3rd grade question. Or the opposite. I don't do as well, I get an easier 3rd grade question. In STAR, it's adaptive between grade levels. I'm again that 3rd grader, I took the test, I got a really easy question, I did really well. I got a harder 3rd grade question, I did really well. I got a harder 3rd grade question, I did really well. I got a harder 4th grade question. It continues up the grade levels as well as below the grade levels to really find where the students' strengths and stretches need to be. Ability for retakes. With a CASP, it's a one-shot deal. You take the test, it is submitted. For STAR, the representatives like to say a student could take the test 52 times within a single school year and never encounter the same question twice. They have a vast database of questions, enabling us to give a retake if data seems to be a bit of an outlier without impacting the validity of the assessment. Next slide. Dr. Harbeck referred to the parameters the state has given us. So let's look at how those fall out. For the CASP, when would we get some data in order to identify that current learning loss? They're projecting that we might get some data in late August, but most likely more mid to late September. For the STAR, that data is immediate. As soon as the student completes the test, that data is ready and available for the teachers in the system. How can we identify their growth over time? With CASP, we haven't taken that test since 1819. Bit of a gap to determine whether they have had that growth over time. With STAR, we've been taking it for years in ELA, when we can definitely track that growth. For math, we haven't been taking it for years, but we have been taking it this year, so we will have some growth, and we'll be able to project the growth and continue to track it into the 2021-22 school year. We'll be able to get robust student score reports from both assessments. However, STAR will take it a little deeper. They will go by overall standard or overall score, standard, as well as skills, and focus skills for students to focus on. They are both aligned to California state standards. At this point, we are proposing that the 2021 student assessment be STAR, both in reading and in math. It will help us identify that target student learning loss immediately prior to the end of our school year. We'll be able to plan for that summer extended learning program that Dr. Harbeck just told us all about. We'll be identifying our strengths and our stretches for the 2021 school year, 21-22 school year, even before the summer begins. We'll be able to keep instruction as a priority, as well as continue that motivation in our students. They're so excited to be on campus right now, and we don't want to see that drained away from testing fatigue. We'll be able to track growth, as I said, both this school year and into next, without waiting till we get to the end of next year to get to next year's CASP results. One question that keeps coming up is, how do we ensure fidelity and validity of results? We'll be looking, I met with the assistant principals today to talk about how we can create a uniformity of testing environments, be they in person or online. STAR provides us with a script similar to CASP so that we can provide that rigorous, high-stakes environment without the stress of a high-stakes environment, so our students can feel at ease but have the same access to the content. In distance learning, we'll be having Zoom proctoring, where people will be able to, our aides and teachers will be able to monitor students through Zoom. If a student is unable to turn on their camera for various reasons, we'll be working at the different school sites to accommodate that and make other arrangements. And at the middle school, they can also use GoGuardian. With STAR, a concern might be that a child might look up an answer. With the ELA section, each question is very unique, so a child would not be able to Google the answer as they might a history test. With math, the concern is, would they be able to have a calculator? What we're finding is that students are not opening up new tabs. The middle school teachers have found this with GoGuardian to create a calculator online. They're using their phones and they're keeping them in their lap. So using the Zoom proctoring will really be helpful for that. And in person, that's a little easier to spot. I think there's one more slide. Nope, I think that's it. All right, I've come to the end.
So, we want to open it up for questions. You know, Sarah's done quite a bit of research. We have the principals here too. We've asked them to join in because they have been really part of this conversation along with their staffs. I want to reiterate that this is not a test that we just picked up. There was research behind it. We've talked to other districts. Sarah actually 5 years ago did a full scan of assessments for math as we look for what is the best fit for our students, for our intervention and classroom assessment. So this was a progression. It wasn't an overnight decision. I just want to share that up front. So if we can take any questions.
I have a question. If I understood it correctly, the recommendation was to use STAR. Are we not required to use both tests, the CASP and the STAR? The recommendation is to use just one STAR?
The state has given us flexibility to identify whether or not it is viable for us to give the CASP assessment. And at this point, we're recommending, based on all of the determining factors, that it is more viable for us to give the STAR assessment rather than the state CASP assessment.
I see. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Question. Thank you for all the hard work, and Mrs. Nitsos, thank you for the time you spent with me kind of reviewing this. Very educational. I think the STAR makes perfect sense for so many reasons you mentioned. One of the concerns I have is the fidelity, the integrity of the survey, and that has different levels, different grades. And I mean with great respect to parents who may be wanting to help their children at the lower grades, but not giving them that opportunity. And, honey, is that your best answer? It might be best intentions, but I really want this to be honest. So we really get an understanding, especially in the environment we've had, of how is learning? How are we doing? And of course, I'm very concerned, especially with things like Discord among our middle school students who will be sharing conversations potentially, which we know is happening across the country. Is there any, can you give us any more thoughts on how we can manage that?
I can speak very personally to the use of Discord during assessments because I've observed it in my own son here at home. One of the wonderful things about STAR is that it is completely adaptive. So students are not seeing the same questions. They could all be on Discord talking together. The test is timed. We are able to give some flexibility for our students with special needs who have an IEP so that they can have an extended time. But if a child is having enough time to read it out loud to their buddies and get their buddies' comments, they're going to miss out on the question. It's going to move on without them. One of the ways we're going to be looking at this is the teachers will be evaluating the data in line with the administrators. And if there seems to be some data outliers, maybe that data doesn't really make sense for that child, we'll be able to have that child retake the assessment, possibly bring the child in to have them retake it in person if that's safe for them, so that we can get data that really speaks to what we're after. We're also worried about the validity of the data. We need to make it as valid as possible so we can use it to help our students move their growth further.
I have a question. Part of the presentation suggested that students have been taking STAR testing sort of right along. So we already have data that we have accumulated through the STAR system. So would this additional testing be different, or how, as we're doing it sort of consistently over time, what's the point of another set of data? You know what I'm trying to say? Thank you. I hope so.
We have been doing it over time. We do it 4 to 5 times every year. It's not that it would be an additional test. We're not giving it as an extra test. We'll be giving it at the end of the year just as we normally do, but we will not also be compounding that with the state assessment. Okay. So we will have this data as our data point.
Yeah.
So the STAR testing, the students have been having it to test right along, so as it parallels the teaching that's been happening through the year. So the STAR testing at the end of the year would sort of be a summary. So would the testing be cumulative at the end of the year? Would it be just progressive past where they had the last STAR test? Or how would that work?
Every time a student takes the test, they're starting from scratch. However, the data on the background accumulate so that we can get a really good picture of which standards the students have a good handle on, which skills and standards the students need a little bit more work on, and which standards and skill they have completely mastered and are ready to be advanced on.
Thank you. we have the principals here. Do they want to make any comments about their preferences, or have they been involved in your discussion and your sort of recommendation at this point already?
Yes, we've talked to them at length about where they would like to see it. I'll let any of them speak to it.
We've had multiple discussions around this, and we really felt that it was the best for our students to stick to the STAR assessment. With all the learning loss and the minimal time we have for instruction throughout the year, moving towards the CASP would take up, what is it, about a week or more of instruction just to get the students in and assessed for data that we wouldn't be able to compare to previous years, because we'll have third graders that have never assessed, fourth graders that didn't assess. So it'd be a starting point that we wouldn't be able to use for next year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah.
And for Dana, all of the same reasons, the loss of instructional time and also the social emotional stress on students to endure 8 to 10 days of CASP testing. It really goes against what we're trying to do, which is to bring our kids back and to re-engage with our learning and want to be at school. And so we do feel that STAR will still give us that viable data without that extra social emotional burden.
All good points. Thank you.
And I'm in complete agreement with Albert and Kiana.
Thank you, Hugo.
We are an untested grade, I will say that. So I wasn't a big part of the conversation, but we do actually take STAR at Cabrillo. So I'm in favor of this recommendation just because we do get to be part of that same collection of data then by taking the same assessment as the upper grades, which I appreciate.
Okay, good. Thanks. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you all. What would be the timing?
So the next testing window comes around mid-May, and we will stick to that mid-May. We usually wait till after this CASP testing is over and do it late May, early June. But since the recommendation is to forego CASP this year, it would be around till the middle of May. The principals will be working with their teams to determine when that window of time will be. But the recommendation, not even the recommendation, what's going to happen is that we will have the data in time to make decisions for summer school so that we know exactly which students need to be part of our targeted cohorts and which skills they really need to have a focus on in order to be successful in the next grade levels.
Right. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Nitsos, for all your work, and school board for taking in principals. It's really wonderful. Thank you for taking time to hear all of this. We really feel this is a great decision. So thank you for your support.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you for everyone for traveling on this roller coaster that the state has gone on with us.
Sarah,
Thank you for taking us
Thanks,
for the
Sarah.
ride.
Thank you.
Thank you for both these presentations, informative, and obviously for the summer school, we'll look for a little more detail hopefully at our next meeting.
Okay.
Well, thank you all. Let us move on to our agenda and move to committee updates. I believe, Roger, you have a couple of updates for us on the 2 committees.
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Neil. First update is on the County Committee on School District Reorganization. Just wanted to remind everyone the choice block petition has been approved in the election. The voters overwhelmingly passed that. So congratulations again. My comment here on this one is, as we wait for the election results and the certifications, is just as Wiseburn, I'd like to make sure that we notify Da Vinci Schools of that, officially notify Da Vinci Schools of that election as well, because as our Wiseburn Unified School District boundaries change, then the residents of the choice blocks, right, become automatically enrolled both in Wiseburn but also at Da Vinci Schools, because they're now residents of the Wiseburn Unified School District boundary. So they would not be under a process for a lottery, as that's always been our agreement, also with Da Vinci Schools, but also with Wiseburn. So if there's a notice or anything we need to send to here, Dr. Silvers, if we could please do that, just to make sure that we communicate with, in this case, with Da Vinci Schools of that upcoming change for our district boundaries.
Yeah, Roger, and I think that's a good point. And we also need to send that same notification to the city of El Segundo for use of the pool, because we have the joint use agreement with the use of the pool and the quiet center as well. So it would be, that's a good point. Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you. My next update is on item 4.2. This is the LA County School Trustees Association, which I attend to represent Wiseburn. I did attend the meeting on March 29th. Not a happy, not a pleasant topic, but nonetheless a very important topic. There was about 40 different school districts that attended that session, and the topic was about human trafficking. It's an incredibly unfortunate, very troublesome issue that a lot of school districts are facing. There's also representatives from the Sheriff's Department, and they at length talked about human trafficking that happens in our schools. There was a link that I will forward to Dr. Silvers. I'd like to share that link with our administrators and our teachers, because there's some signs to look out for in terms of our students. I know it's harder via Zoom and our distance learning, but as we've also been returning, there's some signs and some recommendations that I'd like to share, because if we can help identify even one student, we're definitely helping. So I will share that link that was shared at the last session, and if we can share that with our staff, that would be great. I will also be attending the next meeting that's on April 26th, and I'll have an update on that topic as well once that meeting happens. And that's all I have on the committee updates.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you for your, not only your attendance, but your engagement and keeping us informed. Thank you. Well done.
Absolutely.
The next committee is the Wiseburn Ed Foundation, and I have the privilege of being the representative of WEF, and it's kind of fun, as many of you know. Wiseburn Ed Foundation exists to raise funds for our schools, supplement our educational programs, and you heard about that with their summer program that they're working on, as well as build our community. And their annual signature event, Rock Around the Block, is literally just around the block. It's just around the corner. In fact, it is May 1st, coming up in a couple Saturdays. They have a great number of events and have been very creative. Ann Tittle and the team are kudos to you. They have on May 1st, there at 9:30 a.m. is the Facebook Live opening ceremony to be broadcast on Facebook. Then at 10 a.m., a car parade. That's not virtual, that's literal, with school mascots and first responders, fire department, Hawthorne Police Department. We'll be going throughout all of our community, all our neighborhoods around the schools. You can check out the route map on social media. At 7 p.m., there'll be a free student showcase video exhibiting art and music from our students. So thank you for putting that together. And starting this Saturday, the annual auction kicks off at 5 p.m. with a virtual happy hour at Common Space Brewery. Not sure if tickets are still available, but that's something you can join in on the fun on Zoom and on at home. The auction will end May 1st, so please bid and bid generously. There's also a VIP family sing-along package with Broadway and TV actor Matthew Morrison. And in this package you can purchase, includes a link to the sing-along for your family. I think there'll be Disney songs and more. T-shirts, WEF kids masks, spirit items for the parade, Fresh Brothers pizza coupon. Little kids will also get 2 packets of $20 tickets for the prize booth. And that is happening on April 30th, the day before. And from 2 to 6, there'll be the prize booth for kids to get some fun treasures. And free ice cream will be available to all from the good folks at Connecta. They'll bring their ice cream truck. So lots of fun. Check them out on Instagram, Wiseburn Ed Foundation, on Facebook, Wiseburn Education Foundation, or on their website. Good stuff on Rock Around the Block. 2 more things very quickly. There are the Johnstone Scholarships. They do this every year. Thank you, Dr. Johnstone and Terry Johnstone, for your largesse here. 3 DV seniors will get $500 scholarships and will be recognized by WEF. So thank you for that. And then finally, you can hear this is just a part of the good things they do. Due to graduations and events moving on, they are at this point looking for additional people to join their board. They're a great bunch of folks. So please, I encourage you to reach out to them. Check out them on the website and do in fact join their board. So that's the update for WEF. Good stuff happening and Rock Around the Block, lots of fun. Now let's go to the budget committee. And Ms. Canetta, do you want to bring us up to date?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Goldman. We Dave Wilson, who is our chief business official, called the budget meeting, review meeting, and we met yesterday, the 14th of April. We had good attendance. Dave, of course, was our presenter. Blake and Wendy were there. Neil and I attended as the board representatives. Alicia Galindo attends from the district. Todd Hausvika, sorry if I'm saying the name wrong, attends for this, represents the CSEA organization, and Chris Torrey represented the Weisburn Faculty Association. As Dave pointed out to us in the budget meeting, it's been a really roller coaster of a year for budgeting and for managing those funds. I will say Dave's done a great job, and I commend Dave and his team and all of the district for working within the constraints that we've had in this year. It's been particularly challenging because we've had both the sort of what I'll call the regular funding that comes from enrollment and the sort of standard funding that we get from the state and from federal, as well as the one-time funds that we've received also from the state and federal for the COVID management that we've been asked to do. So within the one-time and the ongoing funds, it's been a very challenging year to understand how to allocate funds for the various expenses that we've had. The district's done a really good job of that. At the same time, managing the ongoing funds to develop the reserve base that we've been committed to developing over time. Some of the large expenditures for one-time funds, which would not be a surprise to people, but are important. One was a large capital expenditure for the, I'm going to say this wrong, for the air conditioning, not the air conditioning per se, but air management in all of the classrooms to protect so that there's good airflow in all the classrooms and all the staff buildings, all of our buildings for COVID safety. And also a large one-time expense for the teacher education in the way of the distance learning instruction and the tools and so on that the teachers have been using throughout the year. So those were large expenses. They are funded through the COVID funds. They are one-time expenses. And so, you know, Dave did a really good job of explaining to us how the budget has been managed this year with those different kinds of funds. There's another change coming yet again in May when California does, the governor will present what is called the May revise for the budget, where we'll get more specific information about funding for the 21-22 school year, and I think some indication for the 22-23 school year as well. So there's still a lot of volatility in the budget. The good news for Weisburn, when all is said and done, is that we are in excellent fiscal condition. Once again, thanks to our staff, our financial team, as well as our staff and our community. Our reserve funds are in place, and we are working on a plan to improve the reserve, increase the reserve funds to the levels that would be appropriate for our size of school district. So that's my report.
I was at that meeting and your notes were better than mine, Joanne. Well done. Thank you very much.
You bet. And thanks to Dave and the team. Thank you.
Indeed. All right, the Facilities Committee. I don't know if Mr. Moore or Dr. Silvers wanted to chime in here.
We haven't met yet. So Blake, do you have any updates you want to talk about?
I do. I actually was going to share that I'm looking to call a facilities meeting, the first one in a while, in the second week of May. We'll try to solidify dates so we can make that happen. There's several things that we want to discuss. So just some ideas on agenda items, and won't throw them all out there, but some of the key considerations and key agenda items would be one final review of the facilities master plan so that we could bring it to the board for final adoption. I want to take a look at that. Also looking at options for the property on Aviation and 135th Street and the old Dana site, and what, basically kind of the pathway forward to knock it down. So I just want to definitely start having those conversations so we can start executing that plan. We also have several summer maintenance tasks that we'd like to talk about from our deferred maintenance account. And lastly, we should finally have some information, some more finalized information, specific information from King Consulting on some of the opportunities we may have related to our facilities and some matching funds at the state level. So Dave, I don't know if you have any update on that to date. I know you've been going back and forth this week with Jamie at King Consulting. Do you have any updates you'd like to share with the board, or is it?
So she's supposed to provide a refined proposal on the items that we're interested in, and I've been promised it to be delivered by tomorrow. So we'll recommend to the board, hopefully at the next meeting, on what avenues we want to pursue.
And so that facilities meeting will happen prior to. So we'll have that facilities committee meeting prior to, and I believe that next meeting is on the 13th of May. So we're going to make it a point to have that facilities committee meeting before the 13th of May.
Great. I don't know. I know Mr. Martinez is out. Dr. Silvers, any updates on the Recreation and Community Committee?
I have no updates on that other than wanting to wish Wiseburn Little League a good start to the season, and looking forward to seeing the kiddos play. So I do want to thank, I have before, but want to thank Rob and the team there with Wiseburn Little League for putting that together, and looking forward to hearing back from Aviation Little League, as well as I know they're getting ready to kick off their season too. So all good things happening in youth sports.
And Wiseburn Little League was on the field this evening. So it was so fun to see them out on the field. It was great.
That's awesome. All right, and then for the DV Strategic Partnership Committee, of course, this is the idea of us working together to build a positive future. And I'll have some thoughts and comments on this in my board comments shortly. I don't know if Joanne, you wanted to mention anything here.
Well, I want to encourage the community to know that we are working on, we consistently and constantly work with the Da Vinci folks. You know, there's big news and little news that goes with the Da Vinci. You know, the big news, of course, is the work we've been doing of surrounding the back to school and on the educational opportunities for our students during this time of COVID, and some of the improvements that we'd like to make, and those are ongoing discussions. And the little parts, of course, are that the distance learning continues, the students are being educated, and whereas the students are not back in the classroom, education continues, of course. So we're working on those communication ideas, those communication approaches, and are in communication with both the board at Da Vinci as well as the management staff.
Thank you, Joanne. Let's now turn to information, section 5 from the board. We'll give you a break, Joe. So we'll go to Mr. Flora.
Good evening, everyone. You know, I think I share a lot of the community's frustration about the process that it's gone on with Da Vinci's back to school, and know that, you know, when we put all this together, we all had the best intentions, and we're hoping to get everybody to sit down and work all these details out. Again, it's not an easy process for me since I have high expectations. I do want to talk about the fact that Da Vinci has a really great educational program, and we hear a lot of great stories about our seniors and what schools they're getting into, and all the opportunities that they're having, and also the success that our students have in college. So there's a lot of pluses to talk about, but there are some challenges, and we want to work on those promptly and quickly, and try to get some options to the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Mr. Banuelos.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Goldman. Thank you. I do have quite a few comments today. I'll start with the first one. Need to start somewhere, right? First one, I'd like to talk about a charter school communication liaison. I'd like to ask our superintendent, Dr. Blake Silvers, where we stand on the review and timeline for the development of this position for the charter school communication liaison, or a title to be determined. I brought up that recommendation at our last board meeting on March 30th. So I'd like to see a little bit of a timeline where we're at, and actually ask that we place that as an action item at our next board meeting for formal approval of that position, because I believe we had board consensus on that. We can certainly discuss that further. Wouldn't be expecting a full roles and responsibilities and things like that, but it really more to give it the authority to move forward with such a position and make a commitment that we definitely want to improve the communications, and I think this takes us one step closer to doing that. So if we can see that, I'd greatly appreciate that on our next agenda. Next item, I'd like to talk a little bit about the reopening in terms of the campus visits over at Da Vinci. It's also my understanding, Dr. Goldman, you've had an opportunity to reach out to Board President Dr. Don Brand, and conversations are ongoing. I'm sure you'll have an update as well here for us on that. As those conversations move forward, I would actually like to read a comment that I received concerning the reopening of schools. And I have had an opportunity to speak with Ms. Irma Vasquez, and I do have her consent to read this, her comments that she sent to all of us. And I really would like to read it because it goes to the heart and the issues that we're all facing, and it summarizes and provides quite a bit of detail in terms of challenges as well. So I'm not going to, I would not summarize it. I don't want to minimize the comments, as I think they're very important. So please bear with me, as I would like to read her email. Dear Mr. Wonder, Da Vinci Board of Trustees, Dr. Silvers, and Weisburn Board of Trustees. It is with a deep sadness that I write yet another letter to share my total disappointment in the reopening plan for our high school students. My son Ellis is graduating in a few weeks, having been accepted to quite a few schools, including Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. He is the typical senior and has given up all hopes of returning to school for a robust hybrid schedule in spite of making the varsity swim team for the third year in a row. He finds it interesting that he can swim, represent his school, be with his swim team competing, yet he can't go to school more than a handful of times before he graduates. My daughter, a sophomore, Carolina, is, well, there is no easy way to say this, utterly brokenhearted that she is going 1 day a week and on alternate weeks twice a week for a few hours, not with her teachers, not in her cohort, not to access real teaching, but to see other students and have some connection to her school via Zoom. The very concept is so ridiculous that I can hardly imagine it. She tells me that their teachers have not once mentioned the words returning and avoid the topic at all costs. She feels her teachers have been asked to not talk to students about how much they miss them. She feels that her education via Zoom leaves much to be desired. As she wonders if her teachers miss her, she tells me that she would do anything to return, even clean the bathrooms if that's what it took. Just recently, she and I sat in the parking lot at Da Vinci High School. We do that a lot. I'm a teacher, and during my lunch, we drive through Chick-fil-A and go to the empty Da Vinci High School parking lot to eat. This last time, right before break, we both cried. We cried because we can't understand how you could not figure out a way to safely bring back teachers. I cried because I saw Mrs. Hanuk, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that name, and she asked me to tell her that she missed her. I did. I cried because I know my daughter feels abandoned by the adults making the decisions on behalf at the school. I cried because on top of all we've lost this past, she was re-traumatized by her school and the inability to come up with a better plan. I've given this a tremendous amount of thought. I have cried. I have been angry. I have gone through every single emotion possible. I have dissected every single reason for why your children are being denied a robust hybrid schedule. Sorry, why our children are being denied a robust hybrid schedule. And I conclude that someone somewhere along the line made a promise to teachers that they did not have to return. Meanwhile, I am starting my own school on Monday, along with hundreds, if not thousands of fully vaccinated, credentialed, contracted teachers. I was never given a choice. My administrators put children first. They made no promises to teachers. And if they did, they had the integrity to go back and correct their error. My daughter, like so many of her peers, deserves better than the schedule she has. This is unacceptable and a blatant disregard for science, best practices, community responsibility, and foresight. I feel impotent as a mother and a community member, and my once beloved district is now an example of yet another education institution that has failed our children. My child has a 4.0 plus at school. She is college bound, 1 day a week for 1.5 hours with not her teacher via Zoom is simply absurd given that everyone has returned. Between getting my son into college and teaching myself and caregiving my blind mother and navigating a young adult with special needs and a teenager about to graduate and a 15-year-old who is deeply distraught over not being able to return, I have had it. I lay in bed at night, tossing and turning and thinking about the choice I have to make should this absurd schedule be continued in the fall. Dr. Wonder and Dr. Silvers, in spite of raising my children in the front yard of Anza Elementary, in spite of pulling my children from the bilingual education program at Hawthorne School District, they could attend their neighborhood school. In spite of walking the streets and helping to pass 2 bonds, in spite of attending every parent conference for 15 years and back to school night and every art show and every play and every book fair and every rock around the block and every single student-led conference and every exhibition, in spite of loving my home schools and district, if in the fall 2021-22 school year, the students are denied access to a robust, least restrictive education by their credentialed, contracted, vaccinated teachers, and if my child does not return to a robust hybrid schedule with many more days of instruction, we will be pulling our daughter out of the Wiseburn Unified School District in the fall. Carolina will not follow in her siblings' footsteps and complete her K-12 education here. I'm sure El Segundo or RBUSD would happily accept a junior with above a 4.0 GPA. You did that, not COVID, not the teachers, not the parents, not the students. This is on you. My sister, who has 2 children in the district for the first time, are exploring not enrolling in Da Vinci High School. She has witnessed this mess and is in disbelief. I pray it is not too late for my niece and nephew. I'm heartsick to even have to imagine her diploma sons with Wiseburn Unified School District. But I will not sacrifice my daughter's education and mental health and well-being because it's the adults at her school and district and the decision makers are unable to figure this out, unable to have full transparency, unable to negotiate and problem solve and literally look around and find best practices to implement. Please, please do better in the fall. I beg you to put our kids first. As I mentioned earlier, I did talk to Ms. Vasquez, and she and her family had decided they are pulling their children out of the Wiseburn Unified School District and will not be attending Da Vinci. I personally do not want to see a single student have to look to other school districts, much less leave their home school in order for them to have their needs met. This is at the heart of why we fought so hard for Wiseburn unification. As stated in Ms. Vasquez's letter, I can understand why she feels this way. They have not been provided an option, a choice for a true hybrid model to finish this year. At our last Wiseburn board meeting on March 30th, I stated that I have not seen the return to school plan that Dr. Matt Wonder mentioned at the DV board meeting of Thursday, March 25th, that had been created in August of last year. Dr. Silvers, I would like for you with board consensus to work with formally in requesting this plan of Dr. Wonder and have it sent to this board by this coming Monday, April 19th. I would like to see that plan. I recognize this August plan will likely and will not be the plan for today of what it would even look like moving forward. However, I believe it could be modified to reflect a school reopening for the first week in May of this year so the year can be salvaged. I would like to see some of our students at the high school level return back to school. Along the lines of options, I would like for you, Dr. Silvers, for you to commence exploring and developing a timeline for a Weisburn High School that is not charter. This is a big ask, so I am not expecting an oversight answer. However, I would like to see options. I am about choice and options. I recall, as I have been on the board for many years now, when the community, when we first started with our current charters of science and design. These two schools did not exactly fit the community needs, and based on community requests and Da Vinci requests, the birth of communications, the third charter, came about. I believe we find ourselves in a similar situation where our high school options are not meeting the community needs, and I would like for us to look at ways of expanding our offerings. As I said earlier, I do not want to see a single student leave our district. That is just not acceptable to me. I also want to be clear that I think our Da Vinci schools are a great option and should continue to be our first option. I personally have a lot to be grateful for our Da Vinci schools. My oldest son graduated from Da Vinci Science and is now in college. I have a senior at Da Vinci Science that has been accepted at many colleges and universities and is looking to make a choice in the next couple of weeks as to where he's going to go to and continue his education. I also have a 10th grader at Da Vinci Science, and my youngest son is in Dana in 7th grade that is waiting in the wings. As a Weisburn trustee, I want our community to have options based on the current and safe CDC and LA County Department of Public Health guidelines, so that parents can choose with their child what is best for them. What is missing is a hybrid option that was never presented. I believe this can still be done. I would like to see the DV teachers poll broken down by school as a guide to see what plan can be done as to who would like to return and who is available to return. I know it is a difficult decision because high school is taught by subject and would require most if not all teachers to come back. However, by having an open conversation, I believe it can still be done. That is, reasonable accommodations would and could be made for some teachers to return that have extenuating circumstances to still be able to teach remotely for their subject classes. To me, the promise that must be kept is the promise to provide an equitable education for all of our students, and that requires having a safe hybrid model. Even if we only have a few days left in the year, I think it can still be done, and I would still urge everyone to continue to explore those options as to see what is available. And those are all my comments for today.
Still processing not only your thoughtful comments, but Ms. Vasquez's letter. Thank you, Roger. Ms. Canetta.
Well, I, first of all, to lighten the mood a moment, would like to explain why I only have half of a hat showing on my screen. I do not understand why I only have half of a hat showing. The reason I have a hat on is because I had surgery, as many of you know, a few weeks ago, and my eyes are still very sensitive to light. They're kind of sensitive to the computer screen too. So, and I can't wear makeup. So what you see is what you get. Half a hat and a woman with a board member with good intentions at any rate. So, but to get back to the real matters at hand, and Roger, thank you for your comments. Obviously well thought out. Ms. Vasquez's comments are heart-wrenching. We are, as you know, working on behind the scenes on some actions that will lead to, the goal is to lead to the accomplishments that you're requesting, to bring some of the students back, at least part of what's left of this school year, and to address the needs of our district in the way of high school that does meet their needs. Without going into detail for folks, because there are things behind the scenes that need to be handled and then brought public when they're ready, which will be soon. I'd like to encourage Roger and all of our community to understand that we're not sitting on our thumbs here. There are actions proceeding. which we'll be able to share with the community soon. So offer that encouragement to folks. On a positive note, I do want to commend the Weisburn Unified School District K-8 instruction and our team for putting in place a robust hybrid model for TK-8, a wonderful opportunity for our families to either choose to come back to the classroom in a hybrid fashion or remain distance learning from home. To have that choice is what's important. And it's important for families to know that that they have those choices, and that those choices are available in a setting that is safe and appropriate to the instruction that's required. So I commend Blake and our staff, our teachers and our principals and all of our staff and community for putting that in place. We do have the high school situation that we need to solve. We're diligently working on it, and we will make progress. It's just what we will do. So appreciate that. I think Blake, as part of his remarks this evening, will talk about the opening of the Right at School childcare option that is now in place for our families as well. So look forward to hearing about the opening of that. And just to say, as my health comes back, I will be able to be out in the community again. I'm looking forward to going back. I haven't had a chance to be to Dana since it's reopened for the cohort learning and so on. So I'm looking forward to that. I appreciate everyone's patience with my situation at this time. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Joanne. Well said. I guess on a light note, and maybe in reference to Joanne, what you said earlier about the Budget Committee, I'm pleased to report that I received a letter from LACO, the LA County Office of Education, affirming the district's positive certification. So go Dave and your team. Effectively, their review indicating that the district is equipped to meet, quote, its financial obligations for the current fiscal year and subsequent 2 fiscal years. So there it is. This was a nice letter to get. There you go. And very positive news. So congratulations to all for your stewardship and leadership. Thank you very much. As to the comments relative to Da Vinci, I do believe it's important to share that we do indeed remain committed to working through and resolving the current matters and the big picture ongoing with Da Vinci high schools, and have kept communication open. I personally remain focused on building a community responsive, integrated and articulated TK through 12 program, in fact, TK through 12 plus, and have continued dialogue with Dr. Brand and Dr. Wonder, as has been alluded to tonight. We look forward to a new, now scheduled joint meeting with board presidents and superintendents later this month. So we are connecting, getting together. And I do want to mention this, especially in light of Ms. Vasquez's comment. Although we have significant differences of opinion of the current state, that is the Weisburn board and the Da Vinci state, I asked Dr. Wonder to commit to in-person learning in the fall, and his response was this: pending no current health guidelines to the contrary, which is fair, DV, quote unquote, is fully committed to in-person learning in the fall, looking forward to having students fully back. Obviously, we would like to have that sooner than later, but this is a step in the right direction. And we, of course, will verify and look to accountability here moving forward. But it is, for the fall, certainly a step in the right direction as we see it. Let us now turn to our cabinet and go from the chief business official, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. A couple of reports tonight I want to share. Let me share my screen. Wendy, I can't find it. Could you pull up, I'm sorry, the first summary of revenues? All right, thank you. So I wanted to share with the board and the stakeholders our revenues for the month, for the year to date, and compared to the budgeted amount. So you can see this is for the month of March in local control funding formula, which is comprised of local property taxes, the education protection account, as well as state aid. So for the month of March, $364,000. Year to date, just over $17 million compared to our budgeted amount. So right now, year to date, we're at 63% compared to a budget. Our in lieu property taxes, this is the prorated share per ADA of our local property taxes that we are required to pass on through to Da Vinci. We pass it on through to Da Vinci, but the state makes up the difference on a one-to-one basis. So for every dollar that goes out to Da Vinci in local property taxes, the state backfills it in state aid. So for the month of March, we paid Da Vinci $778,500. Year to date, just over $3.8 million. And the budget for this year, based on ADA prorations, is $5.4 million. I can't see over to the side. So 71% to date. So you can see there's a discrepancy between what we're getting in our local, our LCFF compared to in lieu property taxes. We're a little bit delayed, and that's because of the February and March deferrals that happened. If you remember, the deferrals were initiated in February. They'll last through June, but we don't have that same deferral for Da Vinci. Per ed code, we still have to maintain that same in lieu schedule payments to the charter schools. So there's a little bit of a delay, leads to a little bit of a cash flow issue, but we've mitigated that with our trans, our temporary borrowing, as well as interfund borrowing as well. In regards to federal revenue, for the month of March, almost $4,000, year to date 1.4. Our budget amount is 2.4, so at 59% compared to budget. Other state revenue, this includes our mandate, the money we receive for mandates, as well as lottery. So for the month of March, almost $187,000. Our year to date, almost 1.3. Our total budget is 2.26, and we're at 57%. Local revenue, and I wanted to split this out. I wanted to show Measure CL parcel tax as a standalone object. So for March, we didn't get any. Again, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but the local property taxes come in big bulks in December and April. There are a couple other months that they kind of trickle in, but December and April are our main tax receipt months. So nothing for March. We should see a large increase in April. So for the year, almost 1.1. We budgeted 1.7, so we're on pace at 63%. Our other local revenue, 50. This is from rents, leases, donations, other miscellaneous items. For the month of March, 51,000. Year to date, 962,000. We've budgeted for 1.38, and we're on track at 69%. And so the end of March is 8 months out of 12 months of the year, which is just under 70%. So for the most part, I think we're pretty much on target from our percentage to budget. So I think we're still on target, and we're looking good. Is this any questions on that?
Dave, have you included, I don't think you've included because this is revenue, but if you include the trans borrowing in here, and would that get us up to 70+%?
It's not in here. It's a balance sheet account, so it's not true income. When it shows up on our balance sheets, which I'll show you on the next report, it's actually shown up as an accounts payable. So this is not a cash report. We did receive it, but it's not a true income because it's a temporary. It's a loan basically.
Yeah.
David,
Okay.
does this show the COVID inputs also, or is this does not, or it does?
It does, and it would show up in both state right here, and it would show up in federal. I'm not sure if we received any for the month of March, but we have received state and federal COVID funds already throughout the year.
Okay. Could you go back to the top of the report, Wendy, if you're showing it? Let me see what the name of this report is again. Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
So from a cash flow perspective, does this, obviously we're not seeing the cost side here. Are we, I think like in the future, maybe a little more clarity on what this projects for our cash requirements and how we're doing.
Okay. So the next report I was going to share is cash flow.
Oh, well, then I'm ahead of myself, so forgive me.
All right. So if no other further questions, I'll go on to the next report. Thanks, Wendy. So here's our cash flow for the year through March. You can see, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but basically July, to start the year, fiscal year July, we had almost $6.6 million. Then going down the column, you can see what our revenues were for the months. And then down below that, what our expenses were. And then you can show we show the ending cash balance for that month. And then going back up to the next column, the next month, the ending cash from the preceding month is your beginning cash. So that's where we were. When we first went out for a trans, we really showed that we were going to be negative in our out months, our March, April, May. But here, if you look at the bottom of February, accounts payable, you see this 5.1 million. That's the accounts payable that we've received for the trans. So you see this large influx of accounts payable. It doesn't show up here as revenue because it's technically not revenue, it's a loan, it's an accounts payable loan. But now you can see the bottom, the ending cash. Now we're positive because of that $5 million loan. So you can see for March, we're at 7.6, April projected, just over 7, May 7.1, and then July just over 6.9 million. So projections right now are showing, yes, we will end the year positive cash. The payments begin, the trans payments begin, I believe, in November and then in January of next year. And we will hear more information on at the May revise about if the governor is still committed to paying off those deferrals, so that hopefully we won't have these again next year and we won't have to borrow again next year. Is this a helpful report? Okay. All right. If there's no other questions, then that's all I have. Thank you, Wendy, for doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I believe, let's see, Ms. Mazzarella, Dr. Dougal, and Dr. Harbeck, you are deferring because you've already presented. Is that correct?
I have an update regarding the Right at School.
Please.
All right, so we're excited. The Right at School program, the after school program, before school care started on Monday, April 12th at all three of our elementary sites and at Dana Middle School. Just quick numbers for everyone. Cabrillo has more than 75 students enrolled. Anza, 50 plus students, 138, 30 plus students, and Dana, that program is slowly growing. We've got about 10 students enrolled right now, but I think as more information goes out, they'll have more students there as well. I wanted to thank first the parents and the community for your patience. We know with the new program, there's been some hiccups along the way. We're looking at the communication piece and ensuring that all of the emails and phone calls get answered. And so staff is busy on site. And so we are going to make sure that they can follow up with all the emails. And there were also some concerns regarding some of the activities the students were doing on campus. And so we are looking at the programming for the Wednesday asynchronous days specifically. The days the students are in school, I think there's activities going on, but this was our first Wednesday. And so we are looking at what that schedule is going to look like for our students. So once again, thanks to the parents for your patience. We are working through these challenges the first couple days, but we are glad we've got a childcare option for our parents to take advantage of. And also a big thank you to Right at School. They have about 22 employees already, and I want to say close to 6 or 7 of them are returning Weisburn employees from our CDC program. And so I'm excited to hear that some of our former employees are also part of the program. So thank you.
I have an update as well. I wanted to just speak to the preschool reopening. We're working on that. I know last time I mentioned that we were moving equipment, materials, etc., over from all the other sites. Those are there. Karen Chapkani, our site supervisor, is in the process of setting up classrooms, and we are working on the facilities things that need to be done to yard. We have to, we're in the middle of getting a bid and purchasing a new play structure, much like the one that's at Cabrillo, doing some other things to make sure that the campus is safe for families to enter. And we've got a gate we have to adjust has a padlock on it, so we need to make it so that it's more accessible, like a door, and some lines we need to draw in the parking lot, just things like that. So that's kind of what we're in the process of. I'm reluctant to give a start date because I'm afraid to tie myself in, but hopeful we can start in July. We have licensing we have to still, have come out and make sure we're ready to be up and running. So that is my update.
Thank you, Peggy. And my apologies to both of you for reading the document which said you weren't reporting. So we appreciate you very much reporting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Harbeck.
No report. Thank you.
See, I
Well, that was timely.
All right, let's go to our superintendent, Dr. Silvers.
All right, and I think that thank you, Nisha and Peggy. I'm gonna touch on a couple of those items as well. I just have a couple updates today. First, I just want to welcome back the WUSD team from spring break. Those that went on spring break. It's the last of the longer breaks as we head into summer, and so we know it's a bit of a long road from here until summer, and so hopefully everybody was able to get some rest and relaxation. I also want to note that many still worked, particularly those in the district office who manage the day-to-day operations of the district. I want to really extend a special thank you to two people in particular, Silka Takun and Candace Allison, for their work during the break. Really, as our new childcare program right at school needed the support to get rooms ready for our students this week. I'm very happy that the time has come for Right at School to start to provide this alternative for our families to seek much needed childcare. I understand, as Dr. Dougal shared, that the opening did not go without some hiccups, but I am extremely confident that Right at School will fully realize their mission and vision in the Wiseburn School District as great partners. I'm thankful to Right at School and their team for their willingness to launch the program in a fraction of the time that it normally takes for them to do so. I mean, we asked them to launch a program in just a few weeks, really, relatively speaking, and they were able to do so to help support our families. So we're going to continue to support them, continue to be present in this process, and make sure that we're able to integrate Right at School into our school system. I also had a chance this week to visit schools, paid particularly close attention to the traffic patterns, to pick up and drop off. Wanted to verify our crossing guards were in place to ensure safety of our students. Did note that, yes, that was the case. I'm impressed with how the logistics have worked out at all of our schools. And I really want to thank all of those who put forth the time and the effort to provide for as seamless a process as possible for this return. And there's traffic, obviously different traffic patterns and lots of cars and lots of people walking to school, and the logistics that went into that, I know was difficult to manage. So to our principals and assistant principals, thank you for that. Had a chance to go by Dana Middle School's ingress and egress. I saw both in the last week. And so to Kiana and Kevin, who I know spent a lot of time managing that, thank you very much for that. And I have some real exciting news that I want to share with the board today. The Coatson Foundation, which has been a phenomenal partner in Wiseburn, has officially selected 138th Street School as their next lab school and will focus on Writer's Workshop at 138th Street School. Coatson will fund a full-time coach that's going to serve as a mentor for teacher fellows who will be selected for this program. It's going to allow for a nice transition from Cabrillo, who's already involved in Coatson and in this in the area of writing and Writer's Workshop. So I really look forward to continually updating the board in the coming weeks as to as Mr. Rios works with Coatson to develop that program for the upcoming year. I want to reiterate my thanks to Jerry Harris. He's the executive director of Coatson. He always remembers Wiseburn. I think that we've been good partners, but Jerry has always been very, very supportive of Wiseburn as we've gone through CGI and now Writer's Workshop. Coatson programs and support have been a gift to our district for many years. And in advance, I thank those educators, those teachers, those administrators who will become the next class of Coatson Fellows. Wiseburn always shines in these arenas, and it's because of our dedicated and professional staff. So I want to thank those, I guess, before they're selected, but those that will be selected in the coming weeks. I also want to comment on time on campus. I know that's come up a bit. I know we heard a public comment on that, and I thank Debbie for the comment. things have changed so much this year, day to day, week to week. We say this a lot and don't mean it flippantly. And as we just develop plans for our return, we did so with some important tenets. And I just want to share some of the criteria that we looked at. I believe I've shared it publicly in the past, but just going to reiterate it. That we didn't want simultaneous teaching. We had conversations with staff, we had conversations with our administrators, and this idea of Zoomers and roomers at the same time seemed burdensome, and also having heard some of the, I don't want to say failures, but some of the challenges, I should say, that other districts experienced in the simultaneous teaching was something that was noteworthy to us. We didn't want a separate distance learning academy, particularly not one that would be started in the middle or really towards the end of a school year, where we'd be plucking students out of their general education setting, the setting that they're used to, with teachers that at least they knew, had heard of, or were used to, and putting them in this whole separate academy. We wanted to keep students with their teachers to the best of our ability. Obviously, it's not perfect, but it was a goal for our team to try and minimize the amount of students, or the number of students, sorry, that would be moved from teacher A to teacher B or so forth. Less change was the best, and that was one of our sort of guiding principles as we developed our schedule. And we still obviously needed to follow, and to the best of our ability, and we have been conservative in following the LADPH recommendations as best possible. So those were some of our sort of shining criteria that we used to determine our schedule. And so to meet these criteria, it really limited our ability to make major adjustments, or currently limits our ability to make major adjustments to our current schedule. For instance, a middle school teacher that instructs on-campus cohorts in the morning would then have a distance cohort in the afternoon. Again, so those students that were part of that team, that pod, that teacher group, were able to keep their teachers. And so again, when you start looking at that, the afternoon, it really rounds out the workday. It rounds out the workday, it rounds out the school day, and there's just only so much time in a day, obviously, for teachers to teach and students to learn. But I will say we are a creative bunch. I've shared that before, and we're gonna look, and we're gonna try and find creative ways to provide more in-person experiences for our students on campus. As we round out this school year, our executive team and site administrators are currently working on some potential options now. And so we will be able to update the board at hopefully our next board meeting and/or through board updates via email. Lastly, I understand there are still some questions about the reopening of preschool, and I know Peggy shared this. And while we don't have a firm timeline yet, a lot of it has to do with the slow and the lag of COVID and the fact that we have to go through state licensing. We're utilizing a new facility, and we were forced to stop that process as COVID hit, and we just couldn't move forward at that point. So there's still some more boxes to be checked, as Peggy shared, but definitely appreciate the work of Peggy and Karen as we're getting much closer to announcing the proposed opening date. I think Peggy said July 1, right? Is that what we said? We're really aiming for July 1, and I know we're gonna do our best to meet that. That's the start of our fiscal year for the school district. So looking forward to that as well. I think that's it for me, Dr. Goldman. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers. And I know in our last board meeting, I had asked you to look into, and the cabinet to look into, extending the school day with deference to teachers and schedule to not make it onerous. And I think I know you have done that. You've been communicating with me on that, and we also agreed that we also wanted to make sure we're adhering to the current schedule and give us a little bit of time, especially after return from spring break, especially with Dr. Ferrer's concerns about just making sure we keep COVID at bay. So appreciate that, and obviously look forward to next meeting and/or new options potentially before then. So thank you.
Dr. Goldman, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Could I just, I do want to respond. I'm sorry, I have a note here and I didn't read it before, but I know Roger, you had indicated reviewing and the development of a job description. So I do want to make sure I mention that and talk about it. We have began the process of putting together what would be a potential job description for charter oversight administrator. We're working on job titles now, and we also are trying to identify what percentage of time would be required to be a charter oversight administrator, and then other duties sort of as assigned. So definitely that's something we've started, and we will update you too. And I think you requested that we have that by the next board meeting. So I think we're well in line to be able to do that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for your reports. Let us now turn to our agenda and move to our item 6, our minutes. May I have a motion to approve items 6.1 and 6.2, special meeting and regular meeting minutes as
Have a
noted.
motion.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Kaneda. Ms. Subaki?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Action items, I believe we need to take these individually. May I have a motion for 7.1, approve settlement agreement for OAH case number 20201-00028.
Actually, if I may, I'd like to clarify something in the wording. The wording was a little awkward in the item, and I just wanted to be clear that the total amount requested is $22,000, separate attorney's fees, $8,000, and then compensatory education services, $14,000. So I just wanted to clarify that. It's a little awkward in how it was worded, and I apologize for that.
So we need to read this as not to exceed $22,000 in total, not to exceed $8,000 for attorney's fees to Rivers Law, and not to exceed $14,000 for a California certified non-public agency.
Correct.
As stipulated, can we have a motion, please?
Motion.
To approve.
Thank you,
I'll
Joanne.
second.
Second. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't.
Oh, you're
Whatever.
good.
Okay.
No worries.
Any questions here?
No questions.
Thank you. Ms. Subaki?
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Thank you.
Item 7.2, adoption of revised resolution number 2021.11 regarding intent to participate in APIP for workers' compensation coverage. This is a cleanup. I don't know who's going to explain this to us.
Wendy, are you able to explain it?
Sure, absolutely. We originally approved this resolution 11 at the December 15th board meeting, and there was a tiny bit of wording change. They needed us to add specified language. That was, I think it was revised. So all language is exactly the same as it was in December, but we added protected insurance programs for schools, or PIPs.
Do you like a motion, Neil?
Please.
You have a motion?
Thank you, Israel.
A second.
Thank you, Roger. Wendy?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 8, fiscal, ratify, approve miscellaneous receipts and purchase orders. Have a
I'll
motion?
motion.
Thank you, Joanne.
I'll second it with a question.
Please go ahead.
Dave, remind me about the SELPA idea reports, the amount of 435,000.
Okay, let me pull it up. So that's from Lawndale School District. They are now the administrative unit for the SELPA. And so those are federal grants in relation to special education. And so it looks like from 2019-20, they're now paying us $435,000 for miscellaneous special ed grants that are federal grants coming through the state into Lawndale.
And is this something you anticipated payment and had already shown
Correct.
that in our budget, or is this something that's excess of that?
No, so at the end of the year, the end of the fiscal year last year, we booked these as accounts receivable, and now they're finally coming in.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay.
Later.
Any questions on POs? Comments?
No.
All right. I think we have a motion agenda, correct? I mean,
Yes.
motion approval. Thank you, Wendy. If you would take a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I believe we can take action items consent number 9.1 through 9.6 together.
You have a
A
motion.
motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Questions or comments, anyone?
No questions.
Straightforward, thank you. Wendy, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's move to action items, personnel, item 10. I believe we could take 10-1 through 4. Dr. Silvers, any objection there?
No, I think we're good taking 10, yes, 10-1 to 10-4, exactly.
Thank you.
You have a motion?
Thank you, Israel.
I'll second with a question on 10.2.
Please, Roger, go ahead.
This one is a resignation from our health clerk. Just wanted to ask in terms of, do we have coverage given our return to school?
Correct. So we have flown the position and we'll continue to fly it to get a qualified candidate. And then we also have our nurse who's been helping out at Dana.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Perfect. Wendy, please take a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we did want to take 10-5 separately, recognizing Katie Masterson as our summer school principal, which is an exciting opportunity, hopefully, for her. And we're excited to have her take that role on. Motion, please.
A motion.
Thank you, Joanne.
I'll second.
Thank you, Roger. Any comments here from anybody? Dr. Harper?
I was going to defer. I was going to ask Eileen, maybe you want to say something.
We just
I'm
want
excited about this.
Yeah, we're thrilled. You know, Katie's been a terrific add to our Wiseburn Unified School District as the assistant principal at Anza Elementary School, and has just shown us great leadership skills. We're looking forward to working with her.
Terrific. It was fun to see Albert and Katie in action working together to plan. They're like a well-oiled machine. It was really impressive to see their thinking and integration. This is kind of fun. So if we may, Wendy, take a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you.
All right. Well, Wendy, don't go far because let's skip now to 12-1 upcoming dates and events. If you kind of walk us through these.
Sure. The first one is on Friday, April 23rd. Anza School PTA will have a Mi Zacatecas night. They're calling it Mi Zacatecas night, but it is all day long from 9 a.m. Oh, it won't come up the file. It's from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. You can use the flyer. You can reach that at the Anza PTA or on the Anza website for some of those funds to support the Wandi Anza PTA. On Thursday, April 22nd, from 5:30 to 6:30 will be Cabrillo's next family dance night. More information on that at their website. And of course, Saturday, May 1st is Wiseburn Education Foundation's Rock Around the Block. And just a reminder, as Dr. Goldman mentioned, they've got opening ceremonies at 9:30 at Dana Middle School. They'll have a car parade at 10 a.m. honoring hometown heroes. And we will have a Wiseburn student showcase that evening at 7 p.m. There's also the VIP Family Sing-Along hosted by Broadway and TV actor Matthew Morrison. And the online auction will be open this Saturday, April 17th through May 1st at 9 p.m.
So to clarify, some of the ceremonies are actually, we're able to attend on the Dana campus. Is that what it is at 9:30?
On the 9:30 a.m., I believe the opening ceremonies are at Dana Middle School, but I will clarify that with Ann Tittle. And I believe probably the car parade begins from Dana Middle School at 10 a.m.
Yeah, and there was something about Connecta and ice cream that I couldn't quite figure out either.
That is on the 30th. And that's also at Dana. I believe is that 2 to 6, if I remember correctly?
So that's something we can walk up and obviously we'll follow all the social distancing protocols. But we are it is something possible to attend in person.
It is.
Right.
2 to 6. Yeah, get your free ice cream and
I mean, obviously you have, if you're not getting ice cream in person, it doesn't make much sense. So
not as delicious, no.
Thank you. Okay.
Wendy, a favor, could we get the information on the Zacatecas flyer and
Sure.
And the family dance night?
And there's a restaurant, Zacatecas. Is that what we're talking about here? Is that a fundraiser from that restaurant?
Yes.
It is,
wow.
but I think this is Mi Zacatecas, not Zacatecas. They're two different restaurants.
Okay.
Where is Mi Zacatecas, Neil?
What's that?
Do you know where it is?
It is, that's where you and I had breakfast, my friend, some time ago.
I could tell you where it is in Mexico because I was born there. So I would, if you could send me that flyer, that'd be great.
It is El Segundo and Hawthorne, I believe, just south. On
Oh,
the,
it's different than the
side.
Zacatecas on
Yeah,
Inglewood.
not on Inglewood,
Okay,
no.
all right.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, let's do it the old-fashioned way. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion. I think we're all motioning.
A second.
Thank you very much. Wendy, take it away.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody have a good
All
night.
opposed?
Thank you all, everybody. Be well.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Have a good
Take
night.
care.
Night.